from Times Evoke in the Times of India. Topic is Big Social Media Harms Kids. Hapless parents try to protect them. It's a huge power imbalance. In conversation with Vice Admiral Vivek H. Murthy, who is the 21st Surgeon General of the US, speaking to him is Srijana Mitra Das. Here, Admiral Murthy discusses the impacts of social media and why some platforms need warning labels. Let's check it out. You've discussed a global mental health emergency. Why do you link this to social media? Many countries are experiencing a mental health crisis. This is particularly pronounced among young people. The pandemic worsened it, but it's been developing before that. This is having a massive impact not only on our health but the economic productivity of society. The World Health Organization and other international bodies show how this crisis is disproportionately impacting the young, and manifestations like depression are costing the world $1 trillion a year. Social media is one of the main contributors to this crisis. It is not the only one, but a common impression I have from thousands of parents in America is social media is definitely adding to the mental health harms their children are going through. Addressing such concerns led me to research behind social media usage, showing how this is impacting kids. Earlier breakthrough products like television also changed how children spend their time. Why is social media so different? Compared to earlier technologies, social media is all pervasive in its impacts on a child's life. When I was growing up, we could not bring a TV to our beds and watch it through the night. We could not be approached by strangers through TV who would harm us. TV did not let our personal data be targeted with dangerous content. The quality and quantity of social media's impacts on our lives is fundamentally different. What concerns me is how we've allowed social media to be unleashed on large sections of the global population without fully understanding its impacts. We've essentially conducted an experiment on the world, and unfortunately, many of the results have not been positive. Young people are themselves telling us now they are very worried about such platforms. Multiple surveys show how nearly half the adolescents using social media say it makes them feel worse about their physical appearance. It tires them by addicting them late into the night. 1/3 of adolescent girls report this and exposes them to online bullying and harassment. Such impacts even cause suicides among kids. You've earlier described loneliness as an epidemic. For some, social media provides self-expression, connection, even community. How do you reconcile these two aspects? Like with many products, there are a mix of harms and benefits here. You have to weigh these against each other to understand if a product should be recommended or if there should be some constraints on its use. My worry is that we have not done the hard and necessary work of assessing the full harms and benefits posed by social media. We've just put this technology out there with no safety guardrails. We've left it up to kids and their parents, many of whom are not familiar with this, to decide how to use it. We cannot allow some benefits to whitewash the reality of many harms as well. The goal now should be to make social media safer for kids, Protect them from online harassments, bullying, harmful content, manipulation, and lots more. From a policy perspective, we should require social media companies to be transparent with the data they have about their platforms' health impacts. Researchers can't get full access to this right now. As a parent, I don't want to feel that a company profiting from a product my kid uses is hiding data from me about its potential harms. Is there an imbalance of power? There is a massive imbalance here in terms of power, resources, knowledge, and insight. We have asked young people whose brains are still developing and their parents who didn't grow up with social media to somehow manage these very swiftly evolving platforms designed by some of the most well resourced companies on earth, built by some of the most talented product designers, using cutting edge brain science to maximize the time we spend on these platforms. This is the definition of an unfair fight. If you ask parents why parenting feels so tough now, one reason is how difficult it is to manage social media for their kids. Parents feel the entire burden on them and they are struggling. What can India do in this situation? First, it's important for parents to converse with their children about social media, especially which platforms they use and how this technology makes them feel. Kids must know if they are being harassed or bullied online, this is not acceptable. They must tell their parents and ask for help. Second, parents must ask the question, when is it appropriate for my kid to start using social media? This is not easy, partly because the research on this is still developing. But in early adolescence, children are particularly sensitive to social suggestions and comparisons while their impulse controls are not fully developed. So, my advice is to wait until after early adolescence, say around the age of 16, to introduce this to your child. However, if your kids are already using this, parents can create tech-free zones in their day, protecting actions essential for a child's well-being, including sleep, in-person interaction, and physical activity. You can have your kids turn over their devices to you before bedtime so they can't use these through the night. You can also establish family time, meals, etc. as tech-free zones. Parents need to shun their own devices during these times and lead by example in setting boundaries. Schools can also make learning and socializing time phone free. It's hard enough to learn tough subjects. Imagine how much harder it is when you are distracted by social media during class. With platforms dominating lives, we are also seeing a shift from in-person to online interactions. They are not the same. This has lowered the quality of social connections. It's also caused growing discomfort with in-person interactions. From saying hello to a new classmate or chatting with people you don't know during lunch, you need to feel comfortable in that moment, which you won't if you are constantly online. In the West, college dining halls, once the noisiest places on campus, are now the quietest because students have stopped talking to each other. They are constantly on their devices. People don't feel comfortable starting a conversation with others. This is also how social media is contributing to the global epidemic of loneliness and isolation. We cannot put the burden of managing these technologies on parents. Policymakers must require data transparency for companies and safety guardrails for kids. You want health warning labels to be put on social media platforms for young people. Should there be alerts for adults? The majority of data we have seen relates to social media use and youth mental health. But it's very reasonable to be concerned about adults too. I hear from grown-ups all the time now about how social media is impacting everything from their attention span to their outlook, even causing depression or anxiety as people constantly compare themselves to others they see online. Many adults tell me they have a really hard time getting off these platforms precisely because they are designed to maximize our time on them. We need a lot more research and focus on this, with policymakers ensuring further evolutions and iterations of these platforms do not happen at the expense of our mental health. The harms of social media abound, yet we've done precious little to protect the vulnerable from them. I have heard from many families about how social media platforms first expose kids to bullying and harassment online and then show young people feeling low extremely harmful things like suicide videos. I have met parents who've actually lost their child to this. I know we have failed in our duty to protect children from such platforms. We have to change the narrative and the actions that we take now. A very insightful piece for sure.